Hello, that was a quick break, but hopefully you've had a chance to grab a quick drink because we're going to jump straight back in with some fantastic content, all focused around finances. So I'm delighted to introduce the first speaker for this section. It's Jill Harding joining us from Buckinghamshire County Council. She's going to be talking about partnership working and the support that's available for residents living in Buckinghamshire. Welcome, Jill.
Hi there. Thanks, Sophie.
I'm going to hand over to you, Jill. You're ready to go.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, I think what sort of the main sort of thrust of sort of my presentation is hopefully, I guess, two elements. One is to sort of explain and show just how we are all as organisations across Bucks working together to the benefit of our residents. But then secondly, to pick up a particular sort of grant funding that we have received from government to assist sort of residents during the challenging months ahead. So really important to sort of be able to share that with you. So if you go to the next slide. So I think, as everybody said this morning, and everybody only really needs to open the newspaper or listen to the news, we know there's sort of challenging times at the moment and arguably more challenging times ahead. So what we're trying to do collectively, so the sort of the Bucks Authority working across the different organisations as part of the Financial Insecurity Partnership, really just trying to get a good understanding of the different challenges that people are facing and how perhaps we can sort of assist and help with those sort of residents that are in I always call it a pickle, but are in a pickle currently, to try and, a bit like as Henry said, look at what the sort of short-term support could be, but then sort of looking at what we may be able to do that's more sustainable. I think one of the things we've picked up in a number of the discussions that we've had, both with residents and also with other organisations, is that it can become really quite difficult in terms of sort of understanding. Oh, I do apologise. I've just realised I didn't put my camera on. Very sorry. But we realise that when people are sort of facing challenges, the biggest difficulty sometimes is knowing where you can go to get the help and support. It all feels quite confusing, and can I go here for that or here for this? So I think what we're trying to do collectively across the organisations, it's this sort of message of there's no wrong front door. So we're trying to make sure across the organisations that we're all aware of the help and support that we offer, so whichever organisation somebody reaches out to, we can then work together to ensure that the most appropriate support is provided. I think I've just touched on this as well, that sort of the pandemic continues really, and certainly the after effects of it continue, but we're very aware that the immediacy, the short-term measures that are being put in place, a bit like Henry mentioned about sort of the food banks, we then really need to work collectively and understand from residents what maybe we need to do to sort of try and make the situation more sustainable in the medium and the longer term. Next one, please. So what we've been doing as a group of organisations within, as part of this partnership, is we've been trying to look at how we can almost go out there and understand at a local level what is the different sort of challenges that are being faced, but also what are the different avenues of support that is already there. So we've sort of termed it a pilot. We've been working in Wickham, and what we've sort of come up with, I guess, is sort of 5 themes or 5 key areas from speaking both with residents and organisations that are engaging with residents on a regular basis. And as you'll see on the slide, I think I've touched on the first one. It's really important to ensure that people can access easily the help and support that is actually there for them. And at the moment, we're very aware there's a lot of confusing, not messages, but you don't really know where to turn, and that's not right. We need to make sure that people know clearly where they can go. So we've been doing a lot of work around sort of updating websites, providing leaflets with some easy, quick information showing people where they could go for the particular themes of support that they might need. We all know the challenges that are being faced by people around sort of food access, both access to food, but also access to nutritional food. And we're working with colleagues within the Bucks Food Partnership to understand what that might look like, but also looking at the organisations that are providing that support to then try and see how we can make that work better for our residents. There's a number of sort of presentations today that are around this whole debt management and advice piece. So when people do get to that stage, they really need some additional help and support. It's, where can they go to get that? And I think the biggest message really is trying to ensure that people can reach out as early as possible before they get into sort of a significant challenge. That the early support is easier both for the resident and actually sort of is better in terms of delivering better outcomes. We all know there is a number of different benefits that are available to sort of residents, and it's about trying to make sure that people know what those benefits are and how they can gain access to them. And, you could see this from two sides, but, I was not pleased to see the numbers increase, but as a lot of promotion, we're aware now that a lot more families are now accessing free school meal support that they weren't actually accessing last year. And I'm hopeful that that isn't just because of an increase in need, but it's also because more people are aware of it too. Going back to the sustainable piece, we're really aware that it's so important for lots of different reasons, both financial sort of stability, but also around mental health and well-being and emotional health and well-being. It's important to help people get back into employment if sadly they've sort of lost their jobs either recently or for a little while. And it's working with the different organisations to assist people back into work and giving them the help and support to enable them to do that. And I know there is actually a presentation later on today. We do have this peculiar situation where employers are crying out for staff, and we have people who are really looking for work. So there's something in the middle that isn't quite working right, and we're working hard to understand what that is and try and unlock it. I mentioned we started in Wickham, and we're then hopefully soon rolling out into both Aylesbury and Chesham. And this is all within the broader Buckinghamshire-wide umbrella of activity. So hopefully you'll start to see a lot more sort of information being sort of cascaded through a number of different routes so that people can see what is going on and where they can get their support. Next one, please. This is just a sort of a bit of an example, really, so that when you see it, you understand where it's linked to, because we do know it's quite challenging at times if people can trust the information that is coming out to them. So we've pulled together sort of leaflets, sort of flyers, and also really updated the website that people can go to that provides that sort of information and support or visibility of the support that is available, which hopefully then should mean that people can access it a lot easier. Next one, please. So I think my last sort of statement really in terms of the sort of previous slides that I've touched on, and I think it was touched on by a couple of the speakers before, the organisations now, the VCS sector, incredibly strong within Bucks, and also sort of other organisations like the housing associations, we're now all coming together. We never used to do it on purpose, but there could have been times where there was quite a lot of individual thinking, individual activity. We're now trying to sort of pull all of that together and pull the best of everything together to try and make sure that, as I say, this help and support is there for residents when they require it. One of the elements that the authority specifically has responsibility for, as you may have seen, sort of late September, I believe it was, there was an announcement that government were investing over £500 million into this household support fund. And this fund has then been distributed through local authorities, and for local authorities then to work with their local VCS sector, understand sort of the needs of their sort of their community area, to see how we can best utilize this money to provide support to those that require it. And we're doing quite a bit of work to try and understand how we can best get that money out to residents. And we're using sort of a variety of different measures. It's there, it has to 50% of it and sorry, I forgot to mention, it's 2.4 million that we've actually received for Buckinghamshire. And this is sort of significant funding and builds upon the funding we've already had to date. And some of you may have heard around the winter grant funding that we've received previously. So a significant amount of money. It has to all be spent by the end of March, which is why we're looking to see how we can get it out to those that need it most over these challenging months, but make sure that the money is used effectively as well for our residents. Next one, please. So I'm not going to go through the particulars in this slide, except to say the spectrum of those that are eligible for this support is quite significant. And in all honesty, when people sort of reach out for this support, we will obviously explore whether this fund can help them or whether there is other sort of resources and other organisations that can help them. So really, I almost don't want anybody thinking, oh, am I eligible? Am I not eligible? The most important thing is, if you need help and support, is then to reach out, and then it's for the organisations to work together to understand how that support can be provided. And I think it's really important to indicate it isn't just those on universal credit or on any kind of benefit that is able to access some of this support. We're very aware that, you know, for lots of different reasons, those people that are either on low pay income or what have you still need that support from us. They may have just lost their job and they just need that additional support. So it's really important that people don't just think, oh, I've seen that money, I'm not going to apply for it because I don't think I'm going to be eligible for any of the support it can provide to me. Next one. So we've touched on this a couple of times, and I know there's a table, a helping hand table within the event that people can go to. The helping hand service evolved from sort of the reactionary work that was needed as a result of the pandemic, and hopefully a lot of you will start to see the different leaflets that are coming out. The service is there really as a bit of a front door into the local authority and enables the sort of the team to discuss sort of the sort of the challenges, the requests that residents have, and then either to provide that support directly themselves, whether it's help with food or doing a food bank referral, or a little bit, as Henry mentioned earlier, we have been able to provide funds into Heart of Bucks, and they will administer some more of the grants that where people have got more complex circumstances, so therefore they need to go through a slightly different process. But the most important thing is people do reach out and do ask for help. We do have the information sort of on here and on a later slide around contact details, just to flag that when people do go online, there is a form for people to fill in, and people might look at it and think, oh, they can't be bothered. Please don't be turned off by the form. The reason it's there is to get as much information as we can to be able to help in the best way that we can. But if the form is challenging, then just pick up the phone and we will then be able to assist you. I think, as you can see here, there's a variety of things that we can provide help with. Next one quickly, please, if that's okay. So really just to flag, we are now, with the help of the Household Support Fund, we're now able to continue to offer the sort of food voucher scheme that we've done before during the school holidays, and digital vouchers will be being distributed through schools for those that are on free school meals or those that are in early years settings with additional help, who require additional help, and that will be £30 vouchers that will be going out for the Christmas holidays, and we'll be looking to do something similar during the half-term holidays and the Easter holidays. And I think the last one is just about the contact details. Oh, no, I do apologise, Sophie. Give me one quick second. So the Bucks Online directory, I just wanted to sort of flag this, really. I know previously it's been a bit challenging to be able to easy access and navigate. However, there's been some updates that have been provided, and there is some fantastic community organisations that are on there. So a big sort of plea from me, if you go in, sort of just put your postcode in and see what's local to you. I think you'll be really surprised in terms of the help and support that's there. And then the last one is, I think, sort of the contact details. So thank you. Hopefully that has sort of been of use to you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jill. There are a couple of questions in the chat, but we'll come back to the person who's posted them after the event, because we are just running a little bit out of time. Thank you so much, Jill. Fantastic. We're going to move quickly on to our next speaker, who is Craig Glynn, joining us from the Citizens Advice Bureau, the CAB. They're going to be talking to us about money matters, debt advice and funding. So Craig, can I welcome you onto stage, please?
Let me just get my camera on. There we go.
Good morning, Craig. I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much. So yeah, my name's Craig. I'm from the Citizens Advice in Bucks. You may know us sort of previously as Citizens Advice Aylesbury Vale, Citizens Advice Wickham, and Citizens Advice Chiltern. We sort of recently merged in April of this year. But we're still providing the same service across the county as we always have, just so you know where we're coming from there. If I could have the next slide, please. So our organisation provides debt advice amongst many other sort of areas of advice, which we call our generalist service. As sort of Jill and I believe Henry as well had mentioned previously, one of the things that is troubling for a lot of people in the community is how to access services. So on the idea of keeping the door as open as possible, we have a range of methods by which you can contact us, which I've put on the slide here, so please do get in touch. Our advice line is the most popular, so it does often have long queues, but it's something that we're trying to work on there. So what we like to do with our clients, it's in our philosophy as an organisation, is to explore holistically the issues that are presenting. Obviously, working with the Financial Insecurity Partnership, we've had a keen focus on steering our debt services towards the local community, but we do pick up the other issues that sort of lurk around in the background, because as we know, these issues don't exist in isolation. They tie in with the things like food insecurity and fixed low incomes, which can be problems that come from benefits or work, or a combination of both in quite a few cases. Our email referral form is probably our newest venture, which you can get onto from our website. We'll aim to turn around a response within 5 days and take action where we need to in terms of what kind of appointment might best serve your need. If I could have the next slide, please. So, as I say, emergency needs, food, energy, these are a big part of what we do, but the exploration of issues beyond the presenting is what I've just covered in the previous slide. So there's just an idea of the range of issues that we can talk about with you and give you advice on to help progress. Now, when it comes to debt, obviously that low fixed income, often money not going far enough by the end of the month, we've got the food angle. So we use, in partnership with Trussell Trust, One Can Trust, the local council as well, with their various schemes, and various food voucher organisations that are independent. We use our links with them in order to get help to individuals where we can. And again, with the schemes that come through partly from the council, but from other independent organisations, where it comes to fuel vouchers, particularly for this time of year, we're quite keen on issuing them as soon as we find out that someone is eligible, because as easy as we can make that for them, it means we can move to resolving the debts as quickly as possible. So this sort of all-encompassing view is what we're looking at in order to try and progress our clients. I think I was really impressed to hear the previous comments about an explanation around what charity long-term and short-term can do. So these are obviously the short-term interventions that allow people in the community to focus on long-term resolution, which we would obviously be looking to help them with. If I could have the next slide. So specifically around debt, because we're talking about financial insecurity here, it's key to note at the top there, assistance with personal debt. I'll come on to what happens with business debt a little bit later, but just to give you a flavour of the kind of things that can be provided from our service, as well as a couple of others, is what we like to call an initial debt assessment, where we take account of everything, income and outgoing, that's going on in the individual's life, where we can create a budget with them, which they can reflect on, and a standard financial statement, which they can use to resolve the issues themselves. We do have a lean towards empowering people where they're capable of doing so. So this is not often, but on occasion, we can stop with people at this stage because they've never taken a look at their finances before. It feeds into the sort of education around money that people are lacking in some areas. We move on to maximization of income. So this ties into benefits and things of that nature in order to make sure that we're getting people the maximum amount of money they need to resolve these debt issues as quickly as possible. That does also relate to steering towards other organisations that deal with finding employment, and Helping Hands and a number of the other Heart of Bucks that's been mentioned as well. As was mentioned, we are one of the referring parties that gets involved with that and the fantastic work that they're doing. And we do discuss debt options, all of them. So to the labour of many of our debt caseworkers, that's IVAs, debt management plans, DROs, bankruptcy. And a really brilliant venture that's happened with the council really quite recently is that we've, in partnership with them, got a fund where we can actually pay for the fees around DROs and in some cases bankruptcy and IVA in order to support our clients, because there's a cost to using these debt tools that often on a low income they can't cover. So if I could have the next slide, please. Because one thing I want to touch on is I briefly mentioned there about the empowerment model that we try and use with clients, where we give them advice and information, take some action on their behalf, but generally try and encourage them to resolve the issue themselves. However, there are instances where that's just not possible. That can be the client who's presenting having complex needs, or just the situation they're in being incredibly complicated. So this is when we would shift them to a more of a casework look at things. And it's the same entry points, but generally speaking, they're going through to the casework team after it's been identified. And this includes ongoing support with debt resolution tools. So we would apply for a DRO completely on their behalf and get that sent off and then help them out with it. And obviously the complaints letters and things of that nature that come along with it. The next slide, please. So additional money services. This is one of the programs that we've had rolling since we were a pre-merged organisation. I think it's one of the ones we can be most proud of. It speaks to the long-term interventions that we can make. So this is the Money Matters project, which is funded by the National Lottery. And it's as it says there, a program delivering budgeting advice. It was typically set up in the first instance for school-age leavers, and it was also conducted in prisons where people were looking to be released back out to the community, because their knowledge of money and how they manage money in their new lives, whether they're leavers from school or prisons, was a vital intervention that we saw to ensure that the problems don't have to exist in the first place where possible, or at least if they do stumble into some money troubles, they have the tools at hand in order to be able to correct them. We have been working hard to produce video guides for this, and we're looking to roll them out via our website and probably through our partners as well, in order to just educate the general population on budgeting, paying bills. It's really easy to start teaching these things at an early age in particular, but they're really for any time of life, and can be used with all sorts of examples, such as with teenagers. It's quite handy to frame it as paying for a mobile phone contract and all the things that go along with that. And recently we've set up an internal referral system. So anyone who engages in debt work with us will receive a referral to the Money Matters project. They can take it up if they'd like to. We certainly hope that they will. And it ensures the long-term advice is with them so after the initial crisis, if you like, is resolved, they don't fall back into the same pattern, or the same issues don't crop up again in the future. Next slide, please. So general advice, I just very quickly, I'll leave this on the screen here for you to have a look at, or you can have a look at it later. But I just wanted to flag up that this is part of the scope of what we do, and it's the long-term solutions that we need, because these issues don't exist in isolation. This is the largest part of our service. It covers benefits, employment, housing, family, a little light touch on immigration, consumer, and employment is a key one here, because unpaid wages and people just not behaving properly in employment scenarios, usually the employers from the side that we see, can spiral into pretty serious instances of debt quite quickly. And one thing around access that I didn't include in the presentation, but I wanted to flag up, and that's just an awareness for all organisations. I think that there has been entirely new demographics needing this kind of debt help that have never really before. So there's obviously people fixed low incomes, it's very tricky for them. But what we have started to see as well is people who you would generally think of as sort of middle class, fairly high earners, who through the pandemic lost their jobs, they fell into a situation that they were completely unfamiliar with, would have had debts that they were servicing before in the past completely on their own, but are now in a completely fresh and new world that they don't understand, and they come to us with a different set of knowledge. These tend to be slightly more light touch clients, if you like, but it doesn't matter who you are. These things happen to all of us, and it's important that that advice is there for everyone and that door is open as possible. If I could have the next slide. And this is a key one. So Citizens Advice has quite a broad sort of range of issues that we can cover, which I hope everyone is at least now aware of, if they weren't before. But there are instances where we can't help. So the particularly tricky immigration issues is something that we're looking at as an organisation because we want to do more, but it's tricky. And this is often tied to debt because when someone has and it is from an immigrant background, say they have no recourse to public funds, it means it limits how much we can maximise their income and it limits the options available to them. So this is an area we want to strengthen on, but where we can't, we will signpost or refer to other organisations or another Citizens Advice where appropriate. And I did say that I'd flag up business debt here. So this is not something that we deal with internally. So, and that includes from debts through self-employment because that's still a business debt. Which often trips people up a little bit. But we do have other agencies who will signpost to about that. And I'm getting the wrap-up signal here, so if I could have the next slide. It's just a re-advertisement of our advice line, just to drive that point home that whoever you are, whatever the problem, give us a call. We'll work tirelessly inside our own organisation, but the Financial Insecurity Partnership that Jill set up and the fantastic work that she's doing to bring a number of people together to sort of enhance what we can do as a team, I think that's really going to be the backbone of the future of advice in Buckinghamshire. So really proud that our organisation is part of it and very grateful for the invitation today. Thank you.
Craig, that was a fantastic presentation. Can I just nab you for one quick question?
Of course.
We've got a few questions that have popped up in the chat. Actually, I'm going to be cheeky and try and squeeze in two. So firstly, I just wondered if we could, there's a question about access to fuel vouchers. Oops, sorry, I think is that one. Would you be able to give any advice on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So normally these come through, they have to come through an organisation like ours with a referral. So if you simply, any of the access points that were advertised at the start, if you contact us on there, we'll ask a few questions. We are quite nosy, I have to say, because we do want to see if we can address all the problems that are going on. And if we detect that there's fuel vouchers for you, there's a number of them. They have different eligibility criteria. We'll find the one that's right for you and signpost you off in that direction or apply for it on your behalf.
Fantastic, thank you. And there was one final question, which was about prepaid meters, but actually I think we might take that one privately with Helping Hands, actually. Thank you, Craig. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
No problem, thank you.
Fantastic. We're going to move quickly on to our next speaker. We're going to be joined by Rob Sandals from Step Change, and it's going to be very much in the same theme as the last talk that we've received, talking about debt. So Rob, can I invite you to join us on stage, please? Hi, Rob.
Thanks, Sophie.
I'm gonna hand over to you and come off the stage now.
Fantastic. So yeah, good morning, everyone. I apologise. I'm slightly croaky. What I wanted to do today was just to run through a set of slides and talk to you about Step Change Debt Charity, and in particular how to spot the early signs of problem debt. It's a common theme. We understand from talking to our clients, they don't always understand that they have problem debt. So we're going to look at a few slides just to talk initially who Step Change are, and then we'll look at the early signs of problem debt, and we'll talk about the service as well. If we can do next slide, please. So a little bit about Step Change. We've been around for over 25 years now. Personally, I've been with the charity for 22 years. If we can go on to the next slide, please. So who are we? So the charity's been around since the mid-90s. We help people take back control of their problem debt and get them back in control of their finances. In 2019, we secured funding to help over 310,000 people in problem debt through early interventions, which was something that Jill was talking about earlier. Early intervention for us is key. The earlier we can intervene when somebody's in problem debt, the better the outcome normally. The service is delivered in two ways. It's evolved over time. What has happened when I started at the charity, we had a telephone service and nothing else. 12 years ago, we developed an online tool. And more recently, the two services have been joined up. So you can start your journey online and transfer to the phone if you need to, and you can start your journey on the telephone and switch to online. So it's whatever your preference is. We've got access to the broadest range of debt solutions. So everything, anything you can imagine to do with debt advice and debt solutions, we've got covered in-house through a range of specialist teams. We've got a dedicated vulnerable client team that offer extra support to our most vulnerable clients. That team has had additional training from a range of specialist providers such as Mind, Rethink, Samaritans, Macmillan, Shelter, and lots of others. So we're not experts in all of those areas, but we have good peer-to-peer support for clients who might be struggling in those areas. We currently work with over 900 different partner organisations dealing with both secured and unsecured debt. We can have a look at the next slide, please. We're going to talk about our purpose. So we have a vision at the charity to create a society free from problem debt. Our mission is to provide free and impartial debt advice to those that need it and solutions for people struggling with problem debt. We also strive to influence public policy and private sector practice to prevent people falling into problem debt in the first place. In terms of values, we're highly committed to our clients. We want to work together and we want to make change happen. If we can have a look at the next slide, please. We're going to move on and look at some of the typical coping mechanisms demonstrated by somebody in financial difficulty, some of the early signs of problem debt. If we could do the next slide, please. So what happens when you fall into problem debt? You're not always conscious that there's a problem. Over a period of time, what will start to happen is you will find yourself cutting back on essential spending, perhaps to try and make money available to pay the debt that you've got. You'll start to use up savings or other assets if you have them. You'll be using up existing lines of credit. So if you have a credit card, you might be maximizing that credit card out. Continuous use of payday loans and things like that. You may find yourself constantly borrowing from lenders or short-term loans from family members or friends. And you eventually get to a point where your creditors are contacting you, but you're ignoring those letters and phone calls. So if any of this sounds familiar, these could be signs that you're starting to struggle and could do with getting some advice. If we move on next and have a look at some of the other early signs of problem debt on the next slide, please. So you'll often find yourself you'll be getting to the end of the third week or the start of the fourth week of the month, and you've got no money left in your bank account. You've got no contingency whatsoever for one-off costs. So if something goes wrong, car fails its MOT, for example, or a white good, one of your white goods breaks down, you've got no contingency whatsoever to go out and replace that item, or you don't have the £300 or £400 needed to get the car through the MOT. You've maxed out credit limits on any revolving credit that you might have. You're starting to miss or to make late payments on any credit that you've already got outstanding, and you find yourself cutting back on essentials like food, just to try and make ends meet and to get yourself through to the end of the month. In terms of getting advice is freely available. Our telephone service is available 8 till 8 Monday to Friday and 8 till 4 on a Saturday, and our online debt advice tool is available 24 hours a day. Online tends to be the way. That seems to be the preference for our clients in terms of popularity. 65% of new clients start to find their way to Step Change initially through our online debt advice tool. The other 35% still come through an alternative to the more traditional face-to-face advice service. We're massive advocates at the charity for face-to-face. We know that's important, and that service continues to remain. This is just giving people an alternative to contact us either online through the website or through the free phone number. Everything we do for the client is completely free. There's no cost or charge. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So in terms of getting debt advice, what to do if you spotted the signs of problem debt. If we move on to the next slide, the contact details will be on the next slide. So in terms of this gives you an idea of it. This gives some context to the size of the charity. So we, in terms of telephone and online debt advice, we're the UK's leading debt advice charity, helped over 650,000 people every year take back control of their finances and get back in control of their lives. Just to confirm, the support we offer is completely free, impartial and confidential. Every client receives personalised advice to get them back on track and help them deal with their debt. There are the details for our website. There's the free phone number. It's free from all landlines and it's free from all mobiles as well. I think that's the last slide. If anyone has any questions, I think timing wise, I've almost had my 10 minutes. I did a little practice run, so I knew we'll be quite close to time.
Oh, Rob, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Apologies for the croakiness.
No worries at all. We're just so delighted to have you join us this morning. I think I personally really benefited from the debt, the sort of problem debt explainer slide. I think it's really helpful, even if it's not our own debt, if it's debt of friends and family or people in our lives. I think it's really helpful to have that slide to look through to see actually when is it tipping into becoming something that's an urgent problem that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and it can just spark a conversation amongst friends or family. If you start to notice some of these kind of signs can be quite subtle, but if you start to notice, it's maybe time to have a quiet word and say, oh, you seem to be struggling again this month. You were not even at the end of the month and you're already struggling. You've got no money to buy yourself a sandwich, or you're struggling just to put petrol in the car to get to work. So yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thanks so much, Rob. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye.
Fantastic. So we've had some really brilliant advice there thinking about debt. We're now going to move on to look at how we can protect ourselves from scams. And I'm really delighted to say we're going to be joined by Poi Ling Harper from Trading Standards. And I'm going to invite Poi to join us on the stage now.
Hello, thank you for having me. I can't see my presentation. Is that coming up?
It's just going to be added now. I'm going to hop off the stage and hand over to you.
Thank you. So my name is Poi Harper. I work for Buckinghamshire and Surrey Trading Standards. Here are my contact details, which I will also share at the end of the session. The reason being is that if you do realise that you do need support, either ask me during the breakout room, or if you want to contact me confidentially, here are my details. Can I have the next slide, please? So I work in the prevention team for Buckinghamshire and Surrey Trading Standards, and what we do is prevent scams by raising awareness, and the purpose of today is to find out what the latest scams are and how to safeguard yourself. We also safeguard vulnerable residents from scams, And this means to prevent them from being scammed by fitting a call blocker or giving them some more individual one-to-one advice. If you do find out that you have been scammed, we can also support you. We can try and help you get your money back with the bank, because there is recourse with that. We can also make sure that if you have given money to companies that are giving you, you've agreed to buy something or purchase a service and it's produced with their aggressive sales, we can make sure that they will stop doing it and stop contacting you, and help you with the banks to stop your direct debits. If Trading Standards is also a law enforcement agency, just like the police are. And so if we do find out that there has been your incident there are lines of inquiries and it can lead to a criminal investigation, we will help our investigations teams and support you through the whole investigation procedure. And that includes if you need to go to court to give evidence. And we do lots of partnership works with other housing associations, and in particular with Thames Valley Police. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so why is this important? Unfortunately, only about 5 to 10% of frauds are reported to Action Fraud and to the police. Therefore, it's a very underreported crime, insofar as even though a lot of people are concerned about burglaries, are concerned about robberies, things like, violence, you are much, much more likely to be a victim of a fraud. So just some statistics. So since last Christmas, about £15.4 million were lost, which is about £550 per victim. So that's just by online shopping during that Christmas period last year. In the last 3 months, just through WhatsApp scam alone, £50,000 has been lost, and £1.6 million have been lost due to online charity. And since January 2021, so just in the last year, £10 million have been lost in courier fraud. Scams is a criminal activity, okay? And fraud affects everyone, regardless of your age, your gender, your ethnicity. Everyone, a lot of people think that they are not vulnerable to scams. However, everyone is vulnerable to scams for whatever situation. And it's one of those things, one of the reasons why it is such an underreported crime is because people either don't realise they have been scammed, or they feel that sense of shame, that they realise that after they've given them money, they think, oh no, I should never have given the money. But I just want to put across to people that if you have been scammed, not to feel ashamed. It can happen to anyone and everyone, and to get support and to get advice from us. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so this is quite an overwhelming slide, and this is just the latest scams that are going on at the moment. Scammers will always change the type, their MO. They will always change the types of scams there are, but here are the most recent ones. So one of them are text messages claiming to be HSBC or claiming to be your bank. And what it's enticing you to do is panic and click on a hyperlink, which is not the link for the bank, but is a link for the scammer instead. Your bank will never send you a text message and ask you to click on a hyperlink. If in doubt, ring the bank. The other scam that's going about at the moment is basically an Nhs scam, whereby people are getting phone calls, emails, texts saying that they have to pay for a COVID vaccine, that they have to pay for their flu vaccine, they have to pay for a COVID pass, for their PCR tests and lateral flow tests. That is not the case at all. There has been an increased amount of doorstep traders who are ringing on, knocking on people's doors, claiming to do things like clear guttering. And once a person has agreed to the work, the trader will then ask for more and more money, and the amount of money that needs to be paid just escalates. This particularly targets our elderly residents and our vulnerable residents. And if that's the case with you, or you're concerned about any of your friends, your family, your neighbours, please contact us and we can help people out. We are also doing, because of Christmas, a lot of people are doing online shopping, so they're waiting for deliveries. There are lots of messages that people are getting from text messages from scammers saying that they're the post office or DPD or Hermes. Again, don't ever click on the link. Go on the website and find and track your parcel. Always be in control. And as I say about scammers, always looking at what the latest things in fashion is concerned. There are lots of scams relating to the Netflix program called Squid Games. And that includes, things like Squid Game tokens, Squid Games merchandise. So whatever's in vogue at the moment, believe you and me, there'll be a scam related to it. So a few years ago, there was a scam relating to the Disney film Frozen, whereby people were buying counterfeit costumes. So another thing to be aware of, especially with Christmas coming along, is the selling of counterfeit alcohol, so fake booze. If it's too good to be true, it's too good. So if it is cheap, then always be aware of it. Always just buy alcohol from a legitimate trader. The reason being that fake booze can contain all sorts of chemicals and household goods that shouldn't be drunk. So, for example, antifreeze, ethanol, that can lead to blindness, and that can also lead to death. So next slide, please. So 5 main things to help you, prevent you from being defrauded. Never disclose your security details. Never give anyone who is legitimate will know your name, will know your address. So no one should be asking for your security details. Don't assume everyone is genuine. What scammers are very good at doing, because it's basically their job, are very good at convincing you into thinking that they are genuine. So don't assume they're genuine. Always hang up if they ring you. Ring that organisation from a different line, so maybe a mobile. And if you don't have a different phone, hang up and then leave it for an hour or so and then use your phone, because a scammer can leave your phone line open. Never be rushed into a decision. I mean, I've been listening to other talks before about purchasing and buying things, and I completely agree with them. If you want to buy something, think. If you want to purchase a service, if you need a trader, think before you part with your money. Listen to your instincts. Always think about your gut. If it feels dodgy, it is dodgy. Sometimes you don't actually know why you think it's a bit dodgy, but just stop and think, and then wait a little while, and always stay in control. Never be rushed, never be panicked. You be the one to identify a trader. You be the one who calls the bank if there is some suspicious activity to your bank. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are aware that a lot of people do get a lot of nuisance calls on their landline. And again, this is really targeting people who are elderly, who seem to use their landline a lot. So we can install a free call blocker to that person's landline. And what it does is basically you can ring out just as normal, but and the device is programmed with your trusted callers, your trusted family and friends. When your family and friends ring you, that's perfectly fine. They get through to you as normal. Everybody else receives an answer phone message, and the legitimate callers are suppressed an extra digit. So therefore, if you're expecting a call from, I don't know, the hospital or GP, people, health visitors who usually use a withheld number, they can still get through to you as normal. But the call blocker stops between about 85 to 95% of calls. Okay. If I can do the next slide, that would be great, and then that'll be it for me. Thank you. The other thing is basically the sticker packs, which is a summary of what to do, how to avoid getting scammed. If you do want one, or you do want a selection of them, then it's probably, Sophie, can they contact yourself, and then I can drop off a load of sticker packs to you and we can send them out to people?
Definitely.
Okay?
Yeah, we can do that.
And if you have the last slide, which is my contact details, that would be great. Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you so much for such a useful presentation. I can see there's been some really good engagement in the chat, people really sort of sharing their experiences and echoing some of the scams that you've been raising awareness on, that they've seen them in their own lives. So such helpful content. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, that takes us up to another break. So we've had another brilliant section, jam-packed full of content. We'll see you guys back here at 12 o'clock, ready to move on to the section that is all focused around food. So definitely not one to be missed. We'll see you back live at 12. Thank you.